And I said, can I live with this? And I looked at myself, I said, yes. I go, let's go. You know, if I looked at my worst case scenario and I said, I can't live with this, then I might need to rebuild my strategy. Maybe I need to build a strategy or a game plan that I am comfortable living with.
Hello, fabulous person. Beate Gillette here, the Growth Architect. Welcome back to the Business Growth Architect Show, where we bring you cutting-edge business strategies from some of the world's most successful entrepreneurs, business transformation experts, and visionaries who want to help you to scale your impact. Look for one tangible strategy that you can take back and implement right away. And now back to our guest. Welcome back to the Business Growth Architect Show. I am your host, Beate Gillette. And today, I'm going to say it out loud. It's going to be pretty badass because I'm going to have two people here. And that is Josh and Krystal Galindo from Galindo. And they are going to blow off your hats right off the hair. So Josh, Krystal, so excited to have you here. Tell us, what do we need to know about you?
Wow, that was quite the introduction. I feel really cool.
Yes, excellent introduction. Thank you very much. Do you want to go first, sweetie, or do you want me to go?
You go.
Beate, thank you very much for having me on the show. We hope that we can bring value to your listeners. I'll tell you a little bit about myself.
Yeah.
And wherever Krystal wants to jump in, she can, or she could take it on her own. But my name is Josh Galindo. I'll start on a personal level. I'm 37 years old. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. We have 4 amazing children,
Yes.
8, 6, 4,
And 2.
and 2. We have 2 dogs and 2 bunnies. We run a real estate brokerage called Galindo Group Real Estate. We have, on average, about 55 agents that entrust us by hanging their licenses here.
Mm-hmm.
We flip between 80 and 120 homes, depending on how aggressive we choose to be in that year. We own about 53 rental properties, and we self-manage those.
Mm-hmm.
We have a handful of other businesses that are all real estate related. And then we do the podcast to share how we do it and have fun. And there's really no expectations with our podcasts or real clear intent. We just like to have conversation. If it benefits the listener, then, great. And that podcast is Going Galindo, Rugrats and Renovations.
Yep.
I love that. Krystal, do you want to add anything to that? Because your story is just as good.
It's better.
I mean, I'm Krystal Galindo. I'm 35. I'm the mother to the 4 children he was referring to. And I help him with all the businesses. We do those together. And then I just recently battled breast cancer. So that was my 2021 venture.
It's amazing. So listening to this, right? So I can't help but go, you must have like a book of strategies because there's so much that you do. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about, what does strategy mean to you? How do you utilize strategy, and how can you explain it to someone?
I don't know. For me personally, I think Josh has a better insight on this, but for me, strategy, I just want to know what my end goal is, and everything that I do is strategic to reach the end game. So I wouldn't say that I plan out anything specifically, but I just know what my goal is, and every action that I do needs to be in line with meeting that end goal.
I mean, that's strategy in itself.
Yeah,
that is
my strategy.
No, really. And that's just that's a tenacious mentality where that's the end game.
Uh-huh.
That's where I need to get.
Yeah.
And your strategy is really arguably just never giving up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think to summarize what it is, you may not be real detailed or specific or planned out, but as an observer of her strategy, it's simple. It just never give up until that end goal is accomplished.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of courage in that as well. I always say courage is the audacity to not give up, because you just have that vision. What about you, Josh? What strategy for you?
So I'm a little bit more methodical.
Yeah.
No, really? Surprise.
I'm a little bit more methodical. And honestly, I find I can, at times I could almost envy Krystal's strategy, because there's so much simplicity to it. And with simplicity can often bring peace. And there's not a whole lot of peace with my strategy. because there's so many moving parts and there's so much energy, time, and effort that goes into it. But for me, strategy, really a big part of all of my success, I believe, one is just laying out your tools. You look at your goal, you say, this is my goal. Now, what tools am I going to use that I have access to that will help me accomplish that goal? So really, I'm laying out my strategy. Okay, here is my strategy. What are my tools? And I identify the tools and resources that I immediately have access to. And the one major tool that's been a super big advantage and useful tool for me is my ability to communicate. So right away I go, okay, in this strategy is using my ability to communicate and articulate thoughts. Boom, first one. Second one, because it always depends on what my end goal is I go, what other resources do I need? And I compile them together before I go. Then I start looking at scenarios. So once I have my tools, I look at my scenarios and I start laying out scenarios all based on hypotheticals. And generally for me, I will go to the worst case scenario and reverse engineer myself back into a space of peace. So obviously I take myself to the worst case scenario, which brings emotion and anxiety and fear. And then I go, okay, how do I overcome all of those emotions and be ready in the event that those things happen? I don't abuse that part of it because I'm not a big believer in analysis paralysis because I think that is out there. But I will just quickly go, okay, how does this scenario look? Play out 3 scenarios around that scenario. How does this scenario look? Play out 3 scenarios around that scenario. Play out this scenario. And I'm always processing, constantly processing information and strategy. I could be in the shower, and while it's just me and my thoughts, I'm strategizing. If I'm at the gym and my phone dies or there's nothing to distract me, it's just me and my thoughts, I'm strategizing. I am always I think strategizing is the secret to success because you're thinking, you're figuring out how to get to the next step. You're growing. And so I could go on forever about this, but those are the conscious thoughts that I have around strategy.
That's a very unique way to look at it. So your strategy, just reframing this and for our listeners is that there is a part about where you think about the strategy to the strategy, basically, right? Because when you approach a strategic thought or strategic building of your business or strategic building of your life, one of the strategies is to have a strategy for that, because you need to be clear that you have to have the time, and it's always in the spaces that are not filled with stuff to do where these ideas actually can come to fruition, right?
My favorite is driving on that.
Driving?
Point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. In the car we earlier mentioned. Excellent. So I want to know, when you said that you are thinking about the worst case scenario, is that not, provocative question, contradictory to the mindset, the positive thinking that everybody's talking about? I'm going to have to ask you about that because
it's an excellent question. Yes. And I love being challenged. I think I commend you for even asking the question. It is very contradictory, and everything about because I'm a big proponent of mindset. I think mindset trumps everything. Reading books and going to classes and all this other stuff. If you just have the right mindset, you'll figure out whatever your goal is that you're trying to accomplish without all of that extra stuff. So yes, I do believe in positive mindset. It's important. So here's what can happen and it's because I'm uber aware of what my mind is doing. So if you're not a uber conscious person, I wouldn't encourage this strategy for you. But for me, I'm calculated. I'm consciously tracking my thoughts so that I know how to backtrack those same thoughts and get back to, where I started. People that can't do that, they could get down the rabbit hole so far, they don't know how to get back out of it. So for example, I know that if I go to that worst case scenario space and live in that space, I will be experiencing emotions based on my imagination that aren't real. And then those emotions based on my imagination, building an artificial scenario, will dictate my current reality. So I know that. So I'm okay to go into the deep end because I know I can swim and I know how to get back. but I want to know what that scenario looks like. But I also know not to stay in that space. So yeah, it's easy for me to go to your worst case scenario and then come back. But with a great question like you just asked, I think it's important to explain how to do that properly. It's almost like telling someone that doesn't know how to swim, yeah, just jump in the deep end. You'll be fine. You might want to have a conversation with them about how to swim, how to get out of the deep end if they do it.
Yeah.
So for me, I like going there because I enjoy control. I own it. I don't have an issue with it. If it's not serving me well, then I abandon it. But when it serves me well, I'm conscious of it. And by entertaining that worst case scenario, it's making me feel in control. And when I feel in control, I find peace. But I also know how to back my way out of it. So yes, great question. If you go to that place, know how to get back. Because if you stay there, you'll start manifesting all those bad thoughts. And and then you're just kind of being counterproductive to what you're.
I think you're just preparing yourself for worst case scenario.
Yeah. And that's always what I do. So like when the pandemic hit, I drew out my worst case scenario and I said, can I live with this? And I looked at myself, I said, yes. I go, let's go. You know, if I looked at my worst case scenario and I said, I can't live with this, then I might need to rebuild my strategy. Maybe I need to build a strategy or a game plan that I am comfortable living with. So that's one of the reasons I go to that space.
Super insightful. I think that that it's important again to point out that and the reason I ask this question is I do believe it's important to recognize what's a consequence of this action. Right?
Yeah.
There you go. I think you're articulating it better than me.
and I'm the queen of reframing, as my partner always says. He says, "Gosh, how do you do that?" So you just take it and you think it through and say, "What is option A? What is option B?" Which I think is an important part of strategy. What if it doesn't work? Because not all strategies work. Some of the strategies I've used are terrible. Like I had this idea to do a coffee table ebook company. Now, have you ever seen somebody go to your coffee table, pick up your iPad and says, can I look at the coffee book table? I mean, just stupid, but I did it anyway. So that was a terrible strategy. So what was the worst case scenario? I spent a lot of time and money and energy and effort to building something that I thought would be the natural thing that nobody else had thought about. And either everybody else was stupid or I was. In this case, I was the one who was stupid. It was a really bad strategy. So I think that part is important to say, well, if the strategy doesn't pan out, what are the actual consequences? Because I think that what I'm hearing is a detachment of the outcome of the strategy at that point, right? You say, I'm going into this. This can go this way or this can go that way, but I'm not attached to it, but I know what I need to look for if it goes south. Is that correct?
Yes. Beautifully said.
Yes.
I want to add something because I think what you're saying, I think me piggyback off what you said official here. The worst case scenario mindset, where was I fucking going with that? Dang it. Keep going. Detaching okay. So there are times, and I think it's important to say this to the listener, because a lot of what we're talking about here is analysis. And if we over encourage this, the listener may interpret it as us telling them to overanalyze their goals. And then you could get stuck in the analysis space. So I think it's important for me to say this, that what I'm about to say here, there are times where I look at my goal, I play out worst case scenario, and I say to myself, that's pretty bad. And I don't know if I would be willing to live with that. But I will literally just say to myself, you just need to close your eyes and go. And the reason I have faith and confidence in that mindset of just close your eyes, make it happen. And if it doesn't work, you'll figure it out, is because I've applied that strategy so many times that I know most of the time it always works out. So there are many times where, because it's very easy to build a strategy and have an outcome that's not favorable. And then you just shut the book and go, it didn't work. But I would challenge you very briefly that I would assume you learned so much from your ebook adventure or experiment or idea. even though it didn't work, if you really
Right.
look back, there was tremendous growth that has probably served you so well today. So I know that even if I fail, the value of the failure will outweigh the financial time, energy, and effort loss combined, because that lesson will serve me for the next 40 years and
The
all of
experience
my
you gain.
Yeah. I mean, and then when you believe in that, you can play out your worst case scenario. If it doesn't work, you can close your eyes and jump in and go, I've figured it out before. I'm going to figure it out again. And if it doesn't work, at least I'm taking a very valuable token away.
Yeah. You're not walking away with a loss.
You're not walking away empty handed.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, to that point, yes, the lesson was it is the same amount of effort to launch a 99-cent or $1.99 product than it is to launch a $10,000 product. Now, between the two of them, where do you think my effort is best spent?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And so, and with ebooks, you would have to, pump them out and just launch and launch and launch and launch and launch and launch. And I found it exhausting. So yes, to your point, there was a great gift in that, which is do not sell cheap products. If you have to sell something at a high ticket value. It's the same amount of effort.
Right.
Why
Yeah.
wouldn't you? And I'm sure that's exactly what you figured out with your real estate. So now let's dive into what's your favorite strategy that you are going to share with our audience.
I'd love to hear, what is your favorite strategy, honey?
My favorite strategy? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know, because I don't feel like I plan anything out like you do.
Krystal's
Like my strategy is like the most strategy that I have is like keeping us social. As far as business, like I don't plan it out. I don't strategize. I just know what I need to get this done. So I have to do this, and this to get it done. I don't know if I necessarily have a good strategy.
I think you have a great strategy.
Okay.
I was just going to say that it sounded like a strategy to me.
Yeah.
Exactly. If she just would stop ending it with, I don't have a good strategy, she could stop right there. And that's her strategy.
My strategy is if I want to balance the property by the end of the week, every single day, everything I do is, okay, I have to do this, but is this going to get me to balancing the property by the Friday? No, then I'm not going to do that because I need to do these other items in order to get that done by my timeline.
I think that's it. I've watched you do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would I say one of my favorite strategies is the strategy that has always allowed me to accomplish every type of goal that I set has been visual representations of the goal that I have. Mm-hmm. So I just have such a visual mind and memory that when I want something and I want to accomplish something, if I can't find a visual reference to that thought and easily accessible, like in a magazine or something like that, I'll literally Google the term. I'll type into Google my thoughts, go to images and scroll until I find an image and print that image. And I will plaster that image all around my life to constantly remind my conscious and subconscious mind that that's what I'm aiming for. And I think what Krystal's strategy is, I want to elaborate on it because I would argue that it's very similar to my strategy. Every thought of every day and every action of every day is scrubbed with, does this align with my goals? Does this align with my goals? Is this going to propel me closer to my goal, or is it going to put me further from my goal? And depending on its outcome, if it's in alignment with my goal, then I will execute the action, or I will entertain the thought. If it's not in alignment with my goal, then I won't. I'm arguably, it's not simple to do, but there's not a lot of sexy terminology around my strategy. Mm-hmm. I print pictures, I believe in manifestation, and I live by goals. And everything I do is scrubbed with, is this in alignment with those things? And before you know it, you don't realize it. But if every day your listeners wake up and go, I'm going to do 3 things that are in alignment with my goal, and I intend on accomplishing my goal at the end of the year. If you take 365 times 3, which let's call it 1,000, that means that you put 1,000 individual thoughts / actions behind accomplishing that goal. 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost impossible to fail. So that's why I believe in that.
Yeah, there's some good stuff in there, because I do think that when, somebody would come and say, hey, listen, I want to learn how to flip properties. That's not one phone call. That's not a 10-minute session. That's, you got to learn financials. You got to learn forecasting. You got to learn a little bit about construction, about leading, a crew in a wild environment where people have a tendency to maybe not always show up on time. It gets murky sometimes. So I believe that the idea of detaching this and saying, and in a way, you're both using the same strategy, if I may just point that out, because
I agree.
Yeah.
You're just doing it in the sense where you say, I do this like every day. Is this helping or hurting the goal? Is this helping or hurting the goal? And you go, well, everything I do, and you add other elements to it to make sure that I stay on target to go after that goal. It sounds, however, more like Krystal is more on the execution in the immediate, and it sounds like, Josh, you may be sort of more on the larger overall broader goal somewhere further down the road, if I interpret that correctly. But it feels like energetically, like you're kind of sort of in the same, we said we were going to do this, and now both of us are staying on target, achieving this, one day at a time, one step at a time.
And I think
I agree,
that's what makes our combination, our force so powerful is, you are really an expert in recaps and articulate. Reframing. No, really. Whoever said that to you, and obviously, just own it, it, or you wouldn't be using it. But no, like I'm like you said, I'm looking big picture, and she's filling in all the details, and hers isn't as sexy because hers is about immediate execution, immediate execution. And so there's really not a strategy behind that outside of just saying task, execute. Me, I'm like, okay, I want to look at the big picture, and I can kind of get into describing how that's going to work and this and that. But I think that's really what's been so beneficial to our journey since we've gotten together.
Yeah. I think for me, like if I have a goal, I need to take it task by task. I need to break it down so small so that, just like you said, if you do 3 things that's going towards your goal, that's me. I can't plan out my strategy and say, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to hit my goal. I need to take it day by day, task by task. And because my strategy may change. And I also think, like, if I was to plan it out like task by task and have my whole list, I wouldn't want to veer from that. And I don't like being restricted to doing these 10 things in order to do it. I want to be able to pivot and change if something else pops up, I guess. That makes sense. So the only way that I can really relate to this and try to translate and explain how I do it is, for example, when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I knew that every decision I made needs to be in line with me beating breast cancer. And I didn't want to go to the place of, of course you do at first, of what if I don't, what's going to happen? What are my kids going to do? This and that. So I moved through those emotions. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to take it day by day. Anytime I was eating something, I'm like, is this good for me? Is this good for my body? Is this going to help me reach being cancer free? Am I going to drink alcohol? No, I'm not going to drink alcohol because there's carcinogens. And then that's going to make me feel like I'm feeding the cancer, the sugar. So every single day for the 8 months that I was going through chemotherapy was decisions that I was making to make sure that I was going to be cancer free at the end. So, but I didn't know what that looked like at the beginning.
And that brings me right to the next question. So what is it about? Impact, empowerment, money, lifestyle. What's it about for you guys?
What is my intention of the journey that I'm on? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. I think.
What's my end game? What's my goal?
Yeah, I think that it's more like what motivates you a kind of question, because I think sometimes, and I ask this question because I know a lot of people that are not deep into mindset have this middle class thinking idea of wealthy, rich people are X, right? They're, they did something where they took something away from someone else, like all the BS that we often hear. So I ask this question as I speak with ridiculously successful people. It's like, what's it about for you? Is it just about the money, or is there more to what you're building?
No.
You want to go first or me?
You can go first.
So I actually preach this often. It's got nothing to do with the money. And all I'm seeking, if I were to break down what I'm trying to accomplish with all the time, energy, and effort and sacrifice that I invest into accomplishing my goals every day, I think organically, I'm a curious human being that is looking for the next batch of stimulation, that looking for the next batch of experience. And I don't buy expensive watches or expensive cars because there's value in all there's a pie chart of what value it's bringing to my life. But the overwhelming amount of that pie chart is truly the appreciation of the genius that went into engineering that amazing piece of equipment. Like, I think we came from dinosaurs and cavemen to you can engineer a vehicle that can stimulate the body in so many ways. And I'll just reference that car I was talking about earlier, where the sound is, for whatever reason, some cars sound terrible. You don't want to hear them scream at you, but this car screams at you and it's stimulating. How it can hug the road at 130 miles an hour. How, when you get in, it's stimulating your physical senses and your visual senses and your audio senses. And, I am chasing experience, and I'm an extrovert. I love being around people. I love the energy of people. I thrive off of the energy of people. And what I have found to add to that for me is to create the experience, and people will come. It has nothing to do with the money. It has nothing to do with power, with control. All of those things are perks. And obviously all those things could be used negatively, which is what I think a lot of wealthy people get the bad rap about, is some people do use it negatively. For me, I don't use it negatively. I don't believe in taking to gain. I believe in adding value to gain. And I think I can build a very successful portfolio by adding value, which is why we're sitting here. Mm-hmm. There's no money and there's no substantial money what we're doing here. I'm adding value. And if the universe wants to bless me with money, great. And what will I do with that money? I will generate experiences that will attract human beings to me, which will add fulfillment and will bring value to my family, will bring experiences to my children. And hopefully when I die, people will look back and go, that guy touched me. And I hope I have 25 people, whether at my bedside or thinking of me as I go, saying, if it wasn't for Josh Galindo, I wouldn't be where I'm at.
I love that. Beautiful. Krystal, what are you going to add to that?
I would say that's impact, right?
Yeah.
I think that's impact. I think for me, I love throwing parties. I love bringing people into our business that I care about and watching them flourish. I like creating the experiences at our house where we just get our friends together all the time. And with my most recent journey with breast cancer, there's a lot of people that I'm writing and texting and checking on and making sure that they know that someone cares. And I think impact that's what matters for me. Money makes it easier. But
that's the thing is something that I think is to counter that terrible stigma out there about money being bad. Money is not bad. Money is very good. And money is access, and it's resources, and it's abundance, and it's memories, and it's experiences. And it's the person that's behind the money that can tarnish, tarnish that experience of money. I mentioned with Krystal, not to discount any part of her journey because it was brutal for me. And I can't even imagine how brutal and difficult it was for her. But if I had to choose how to battle breast cancer, I would choose to battle breast cancer with money. It made the experience more hopeful, and not luxurious by any stretch. Hopeful
choices. It gives you choice. It gives you many, many more choices. I think that's what I'm hearing, because that's what money's about.
Options. We had, there you go. So and if money were rocks, I'd want rocks.
And I thank you for that, for talking about this so openly, because I do believe that the wealth mindset isn't necessarily a money mindset. Money mindset is part of a wealth mindset. And if we want to share this information, it's like wealth is, and I'm sure, Krystal, specifically for you, on your wealth list, health is now at the top spot.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And kind of like, how can it not be? All right. As shocking as it is, we are at the end of our segment. Clearly, I could talk to you forever. So tell us, how can we find out about you? I know you have a podcast, so tell us about the podcast one more time. Websites, freebies, engagement pieces. Bring it on.
There's many ways to get a hold of us. So I would say first, Instagram. Our handle is Going Galindo Podcast. There's also Josh. What is yours? Josh Galindo?
Just do Galindo Group RE.
Okay. Galindo Group RE. That's GALINDO GROUPRE. And then Going Galindo Podcast.
And then we're on TikTok. And then if you are interested in, if any of the listeners know somebody that is going through cancer or that is battling cancer or wants to understand a little bit about cancer, which unfortunately it's
more common.
I don't want to say there you go. I didn't want to say everywhere. It's just too extreme. Krystal's TikTok has a lot of informative humor around it, education around it. And that's Krystal
M. Galindo.
Yeah. On TikTok.
That's KRYSTAL M. Galindo.
We're all over. You could type in Josh Galindo, Las Vegas. You could type in Krystal Galindo, Las Vegas. Just the last name is GALINDO, and you'll find us. So we'd love to help connect, do more podcasts with people, educate and entertain.
Yeah.
So. Right. And on the entertain, the next time I'm in Las Vegas, I'll look you up.
Yes.
All right. So thanks, guys. It's been absolutely awesome. I appreciate you coming on the show. You've been absolutely wonderful guest. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And this is it for us for today. Thank you so much for listening and watching the Business Growth Architect Show. This is your host, Beate Gillette, and goodbye. And that's it for us today. Thank you for listening and watching the Business Growth Architect Show. I enjoyed having you here. And for accountability, just take one of the strategies that you have heard, one thing that you can implement in your business immediately. Please leave comments. Don't forget to like and share this show. And if you have any questions about business, please put them in the comments. We are here for you. We're here to support you and help you to grow, build, and scale your own business. For more advice, please check out our website in the show notes below. Thank you again. This is Beate Gillette, the Growth Architect, and goodbye.